Welcome to our channel. Before we get started, please consider liking and subscribing so we can bring more stories like this to you.
Harmony Glade and the Rule Book. Harmony Glade shimmered under the relentless July sun. Every blade of grass stood at attention. A uniform 3 inches high hedges were sculpted into perfect geometric shapes, and flower beds exploded with vibrant, but carefully curated, blossoms. It was a testament to order. A sanctuary of suburban perfection, and Martha Livingston was its self-appointed guardian. She knelt, a trowel in her gloved hand, meticulously weeding her petunias. The air hung thick and sweet with their fragrance, mingling with the sharper scent of freshly cut grass that a robin chirped from a precisely pruned dogwood. Its song almost regulated. Martha smoothed a stray strand of gray hair behind her ear. The robin's cheerful chirping, despite its regularity, was still an unwelcome distraction. Suddenly, her eye caught it, a splash of rebellious color amidst the serene green. A dandelion, brazenly flaunting its yellow head in Mrs. Henderson's otherwise impeccable lawn 2 doors down. Martha's jaw tightened. Such flagrant disregard. She finished weeding, carefully brushing the dirt from her knees before rising. She considered a polite note, slid discreetly under Mrs. Henderson's door. But Mrs. Henderson, bless her heart, was forgetful. A note would likely be lost amongst the stacks of magazines and half-finished knitting projects that perpetually littered her porch. A direct approach was required as she walked across the manicured expanse separating their properties. She rehearsed her opening line, something gentle, yet firm. Something that conveyed the importance of adhering to the community standards without sounding accusatory. "Mrs. Henderson," Martha called out, her voice carefully modulated. Mrs. Henderson emerged from her porch, her floral dress a riot of clashing colors that made Martha's eye twitch. "Oh, Martha! Lovely to see you. Come have some iced tea." Martha steeled herself. "I appreciate the offer, Gladys, but I wanted to bring something to your attention." She gestured subtly towards the offending dandelion. "There appears to be a non-compliant specimen in your lawn." Gladys followed Martha's gaze. "Oh, that old thing? I saw it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I'll pull it tomorrow, promise." "Tomorrow," Martha repeated, a touch of incredulity creeping into her voice. "The rulebook clearly states that lawns must be maintained free of weeds at all times." Gladys chuckled, a warm, rumbling sound. "Oh, Martha, you and that rulebook. Don't you think you take it a little too seriously?" Martha bristled, though she tried not to show it. "The rules are in place for a reason, Gladys. They ensure Harmony Glade maintains its aesthetic integrity." Gladys waved her hand dismissively. "Well, I appreciate you pointing it out, dear. I'll get to it. Now, are you sure you won't come in for that tea?" Martha declined, the taste of unspoken disapproval bitter on her tongue. Back in her perfectly ordered home, she retrieved the HOA rulebook from its designated place on the shelf. It was a thick, intimidating volume bound in navy blue, its pages filled with clauses, subclauses, and meticulously defined regulations. She flipped to Section 3, Subsection B, Paragraph 7, Lawn Maintenance and Weed Control. She ran a finger down the page, rereading the familiar words. "Lawns shall be maintained at a height of between 2 and 3 inches. All weeds, including but not limited to dandelions, clover, and crabgrass, must be removed within 24 hours of detection." A sense of grim satisfaction washed over her. She wasn't being unreasonable. She was simply upholding the standards to which they had all agreed. Later that evening, after a dinner of precisely portioned salmon and steamed broccoli, Martha sat at her desk. A spreadsheet glowed on her computer screen, meticulously detailing every homeowner's compliance with the HOA regulations. She meticulously updated Mrs. Henderson's entry to weed infraction, pending resolution. A new email notification popped up. It was from the HOA president, Mr. Thompson, reminding everyone about the upcoming community picnic. Martha sighed. The picnic, an annual event she dreaded. Small talk, forced smiles, and endless variations of potato salad. She glanced at the rulebook, still lying open on her desk. There was a section dedicated to community events, outlining the dress code: smart casual, no denim, the approved types of food, no spicy dishes, and the acceptable topics of conversation, weather, gardening, local news, nothing controversial. Martha leaned back in her chair, a flicker of something akin to weariness crossing her face. Harmony Glade was perfect, yes, but sometimes she wondered if perfection came at too high a price measured not in dollars and cents, but in genuine connection, in spontaneous laughter, in the messy, unpredictable beauty of life lived outside the lines. She knew that feeling well from childhood. She knew all about the rigid rules and the painful need for validation. She was not in the Glade by accident. She needed it to be there. The thought of the picnic, of navigating the intricate social minefield of Harmony Glade, filled her with a quiet dread. But she knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within her, that she would attend. She would smile, she would make small talk, and she would ensure that her potato salad was perfectly compliant with regulations. Because in Harmony Glade, rules were everything. And Martha Livingston was nothing if not a stickler for the rules. Or so she told herself. Lemonade Dreams. Lily hummed a jaunty tune, her red sneakers scuffing against the pavement as she dragged the small red wagon towards the garage. Tom, his own blue sneakers flashing, trotted alongside, struggling to keep pace. Lily, wait up, he pleaded, his voice breathless. Almost there, slowpoke, she called back, a grin stretching across her face. Lemonade fortunes await. The garage, usually a cavern of forgotten sporting equipment and dusty boxes, was today the supply depot for their burgeoning enterprise. Lily swung open the door, the scent of sawdust and sunshine hitting them. Inside, they gathered their arsenal. A chipped wooden table, a bright yellow tablecloth adorned with hand-painted lemons, a stack of paper cups, and most importantly, their grandmother's secret lemonade recipe, written on a faded index card. Tom wrestled the heavy pitcher filled with the pre-squeezed lemons and water, while Lily carefully balanced the sugar jar and a bag of ice. Careful, Tommy, she cautioned, her brow furrowed. That's liquid gold, you know. Back on the sidewalk, they transformed the mundane into magic. The table, once covered, became a beacon of summer cheer. Tom, emboldened by the task, meticulously arranged the cups while Lily unfurled their hand-lettered signs. Point 1, proclaiming Lily and Tom's lemonade, best in the neighborhood, was taped to the front of the table. Another, more ambitious sign, declared, ice-cold lemonade, quench your thirst, support our dreams. Dreams? Tom questioned, tilting his head. Of course, dreams. Lily declared, striking a dramatic pose. My dream is a telescope to see the moons of Jupiter. And yours, Tommy, what's yours? Tom shuffled his feet, his cheeks flushing. A new set of art supplies, he mumbled, barely audible. The big one with all the pastels. Lily beamed, squeezing his shoulder. See? Dreams. And every cup of lemonade brings us closer. The first hour crawled by. The sun beat down. The cicadas buzzed their incessant song, and only Mrs. Henderson, walking her chihuahua, purchased a cup. Mrs. Henderson, notorious for her frugality, paid with exact change fished from the depths of her floral purse, but her smile was genuine. Delicious, children, she'd said, patting Tom on the head. Just what I needed. Tom's initial enthusiasm began to wane. He slumped onto a nearby patch of grass, picking at the blades. Maybe nobody wants our lemonade, he sighed, his voice heavy with disappointment. Lily refused to be discouraged. She straightened her sign, adjusting it to catch the light just so. Don't be silly, Tommy. It's early, just wait. Besides, she added, lowering her voice conspiratorially, I saw Mr. Peterson heading towards his garden. He'll be parched after all that weeding. And she was right. Soon, the rhythmic snip of Mr. Peterson's pruning shears ceased, and he emerged from behind his rose bushes, his face flushed and his brow glistening with sweat. He lumbered towards their stand, a grateful smile spreading across his face. Lemonade, you say? He boomed, his voice raspy. Just the ticket. He bought 2 cups, one for himself and one for his wife, and even left a generous tip, buoyed by Mr. Peterson's patronage. Tom perked up. He began calling out to passers-by, his voice gaining confidence with each successful transaction. Ice-cold lemonade. Beat the heat. A young couple, pushing a stroller, stopped at a group of teenagers, their laughter echoing down the street. Each bought a cup. Business was booming. The clinking of coins in their makeshift cash box. An old shoebox lined with foil grew louder. Lily meticulously tracked their earnings in a notebook, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We're getting there, Tommy." Almost enough for a new box of pastels. As the afternoon wore on, the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the street. A sleek, silver sedan pulled up to the curb, its engine purring like a contented cat. A woman emerged, her impeccably tailored suit a stark contrast to the casual attire of the neighborhood. Her sunglasses obscured her eyes, but her expression was tight, disapproving. Lily felt a knot form in her stomach. Something about the woman felt wrong. The letter of the law. From her bay window vantage, Martha Livingston cast a discerning eye over Harmony Glade. Hydrangeas formed perfect globes. Impatiens marched in obedient lines along the walkways, and not a single weed dared breach the flawlessly sculpted lawns. Except, Martha's gaze sharpened point 2 houses down. An unsanctioned construction blighted the otherwise impeccable vista at a lurid yellow monstrosity. As if sunshine had curdled and splattered against plywood, she reached for her binoculars. The well-worn leather a familiar coolness against her skin. Children Lily Chen, she thought, and her younger brother, Tom, they were flagging down passing cars, small pitchers clutched in their hands. Lemonade, no less. The sheer nerve. Martha's blood pressure surged. This infraction demanded immediate attention. She strode to the bookshelf, its polished surface reflecting the afternoon sunlight. There it rested. The Harmony Glade Homeowners Association Rule Book. A hefty volume, bound in burgundy, containing the sacrosanct edicts that maintained their community's equilibrium. She settled into her floral armchair, the book snapping open with a dry rustle. Article 6, Section 3, Subsection B, Restrictions on Commercial Activity. Her finger tracked the text. No resident shall engage in any commercial enterprise visible from the street or generating undue noise or traffic within the community. Strike 1. Strike 2. Strike 3. Practically, her pen, a silver Parker, danced across the page, underlining with zealous strokes. Article 8, Section 1, Subsection A, Structures and Improvements. Ah, a favorite. All structures, temporary or permanent, require approval from the Architectural Review Committee prior to construction or placement on any lot. That yellow eyesore wouldn't pass muster with the Arc if the fate of Western civilization depended on it. That too received an emphatic underline, righteous anger swelling within her. The Chens weren't merely bending the rules, they were thumbing their noses at the very foundations of Harmony Glade. Article 12, Section 4, Beverage Sales. Martha nearly sputtered. This was beyond belief. No resident shall offer for sale any beverage, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, on common property or from any structure not permanently affixed to the property. The Parker practically thrummed in her grasp at a perfect storm of transgressions. 3 distinct, undeniable violations stared back at her from the page. The grim vision materialized. Property values plummeting like a stone, serenity shattered into a million pieces, dandelions staging a hostile takeover of Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning lawn. All thanks to this lemonade-fueled insurrection. Martha stood, her spine rigid. She smoothed the creases from her patterned dress, each motion precise. A quick check in the hall mirror confirmed her resolve. Impeccably coiffed white hair, a firmly set jaw, pearls gleaming like tiny declarations of war. She was the embodiment of civic duty. A flicker of something passed through her hesitation. No anticipation, perhaps the electric thrill of enforcing order, shielding her haven from the creeping tendrils of disorder. A guardian, a sentinel, standing firm against the menace of refreshments. She snatched up her handbag, the leather a comforting weight. Inside resided her arsenal, her HOA ID, her trusty pen, and a small notebook for documenting infractions. She inhaled deeply, the air redolent with lavender and a sense of purpose. Outside, the sun blazed upon Harmony Glade, baking the perfectly cropped lawns. Martha moved towards the Chun residence, each footfall resolute, her mission crystal clear. She wasn't a villain. She was simply upholding standards. The standards that held Harmony Glade aloft. The standards that shielded everyone. She could almost taste the sweet tang of compliance. She would be firm, yet compassionate, She would lay out the infractions, cite the relevant articles, and steer the Chens gently toward a path of a path devoid of roadside commerce as she neared. She noticed Tom shifting uncomfortably, eyes glued to the pavement. Lily was laughing with a woman in a blue sundress, offering her a glass of lemonade for a heartbeat. Martha faltered. They appeared so guileless. But rules remained rules, and Harmony Glade rested upon them. She adjusted her handbag, prepared to deliver the unyielding letter of the law. A stand shut down. Martha Livingston's practical footwear tapped a staccato rhythm on the pavement, each footfall marking the inexorable march of regulation against what she deemed disorder. The Chun house, usually a model of suburban serenity, was currently awash in gaudy hues and trade. A lemonade dispensary. The nerve. Her grip tightened on the HOA guidelines, the cool, slick cover a meager source of reassurance. Section 3.12b declared, plain as day. Commercial ventures are prohibited on residential lots. Infractions will incur a reprimand, followed by a monetary penalty. Martha knew the passage verbatim, having practically inhaled the whole document during her time on the committee. Lily Chun, all of 7 summers, grinned as Martha drew near. Lemonade, miss? $50. Her pigtails danced with each syllable, a cheerful counterpoint to the consternation brewing within Martha. Beside her, Tom, perhaps 9, fidgeted, avoiding her gaze that he nervously adjusted the price placard. A hastily scrawled piece of cardboard leaning against a tower of disposable cups. He seemed to sense the impending reprimand. Martha offered a tight smile, a strained contortion that likely appeared more like a glower. Good afternoon, children. I'm Martha Livingston, from the HOA. She watched their expressions, seeking a flicker of recognition, a spark of comprehension. Lily's smile wavered. Tom remained glued to the placard. Yes, ma'am, Lily chirped, though a tremor of apprehension underlay the question. I'm afraid this operation violates several HOA covenants. Martha brandished the rulebook, the gesture precise and deliberate. Specifically Section 3.12b, as I imagine you know? She paused, anticipating an admission, a supplication. Instead, she received only blank stares. Martha sighed internally, innocence. It forbids business activities on private property. That means you can't vend lemonade here. Lily's lower lip quivered. But we're just trying to raise a little money. I appreciate that, dear, Martha said, attempting a maternal tone that felt utterly alien. But rules are rules. They exist to safeguard our community's integrity and property values. She loathed the rote delivery, but years of meetings had eroded any trace of spontaneity. Tom finally spoke, his voice a mere breath. But Mrs. Davison gave us permission. Mrs. Davison. That bleeding heart was always undercutting her. Martha's eyes narrowed slightly. Mrs. Davison isn't on the board, is she? It's my duty to enforce these regulations. She softened her voice, ever so slightly. I'm sorry, children, but you'll have to close up shop. Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears. But we were so close. Close to what? Martha inquired, her curiosity piqued despite her best intentions. Tom scuffed at a loose stone on the pavement. We're trying to collect money for Mr. Peterson's surgery. The words hung in the air, unsettling and unexpected. Mr. Peterson, the quiet neighbor, who always offered a polite wave but kept to himself. Surgery? Martha felt a pang of discomfort, a twinge of doubt. She hadn't been informed of this. What surgery? She asked, her tone gentler now. Lily sniffled. He needs a new heart valve. IT costs a fortune, and his insurance won't pay for everything. Mom said. Her voice broke. Mom said we could help him. Martha felt a knot forming in her gut. She detested these unexpected moral quandaries. She prepared to deal with a simple infraction. Not a child's desperate act of kindness, but regulations were regulations. Weren't they? She inhaled deeply. I'm truly sorry to hear about Mr. Peterson, children, but I still cannot condone this enterprise. IT establishes a dangerous precedent. The children's faces fell. Lily began to weep soundlessly, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. Tom, his face ashen, began to gather the cups and the pitcher of lemonade. The bright yellow liquid seemed to mock her, a testament to their dashed hopes as they dismantled the stand. The joyous atmosphere evaporating like morning dew. Martha stood there, the rulebook a leaden weight in her hand, the tap of her shoes, now fading into the distance, echoed in the sudden stillness. The lemonade stand, vibrant burst of cheer, was gone, leaving behind an empty space and the faint, lingering tang of citrus. Martha felt a strange, unfamiliar unease, a disquiet that burrowed deep within her. She'd upheld the rules, maintained order. But somehow, the victory tasted like bitter herbs, whispers of discontent. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as Martha Livingston walked back towards her house. The crumpled HOA violation notice clutched in her hand. She felt a flicker of unease, a prickle of conscience that she quickly dismissed. Rules were rules behind her. The murmur of discontent grew louder. Lily Chen, tears streaking her face, was being comforted by her father, Tom, the overturned lemonade stand, its cheery yellow awning now askew, lay like a fallen soldier. Mr. Henderson, watering his petunias next door, shook his head, muttering something under his breath about heartless busybodies. Mrs. Davison, from across the street, rushed over, her floral dress billowing in the slight breeze. "Oh, Lily, darling, don't cry. What happened?" Tom Chun, his face flushed, explained in a low voice. "The HOA. They said we didn't have a permit. We have to shut down." Mrs. Davison's eyebrows shot up. "A permit for a lemonade stand? Since when?" The words spread quickly, carried on the warm evening air. By the time Martha reached her porch, the whispers had become a chorus. Elena Rodriguez, her voice raspy from her illness, stood with a small group near the corner of the street. They were talking, heads bent together, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and anger. Martha tried to ignore them, unlocking her front door with a sharp click. Inside, the cool air conditioning offered little comfort. She poured herself a glass of iced tea, the clinking of the ice cubes sounding unnaturally loud in the silence of her home. The phone rang. It was Carol Henderson, her voice tight. "Martha, did you really shut down Lily's lemonade stand?" "I was simply enforcing the regulations, Carol," Martha replied, her tone defensive. "Regulations? Martha, those children were raising money for Mr. Peterson's surgery. He needs a new kidney, you know?" Martha's hand tightened around the phone. She didn't know. How could she? The regulations didn't mention kidney transplants. He's been saving up for years, and they were just trying to help him reach his goal. Carol continued, her voice rising. "Everyone knows he's been working so hard, and he's always been a kind and generous man. Now you've ruined everything." Martha stammered. I didn't realize." "Of course you didn't," Carol snapped. "You never do that. You're so busy following the letter of the law, you completely missed the spirit of it." The line went dead. The tea tasted bitter in Martha's mouth. She walked to the window, peering out at the street. The group was still there, their conversation more animated now. She could see Elena Rodriguez gesturing with her hands, her face etched with concern. Tom Chun was picking up the scattered cups and napkins from the lemonade stand. His shoulders slumped. Lily was nowhere to be seen. A wave of nausea washed over Martha. She had always prided herself on being a responsible member of the community, a stickler for the rules that kept everything in order. But now, she felt like an outsider, a pariah. The very order she sought to maintain seemed to be crumbling around her, replaced by a growing tide of resentment. She heard a knock on the door hesitantly. She opened it. Elena Rodriguez stood on her porch, her face pale but her eyes burning with an inner fire. "Martha," Elena said, her voice quiet but firm, "what you did was wrong. Mr. Peterson is one of the kindest people in this neighborhood. Lily and Tom were trying to help him." Martha swallowed hard. I didn't know," Elena sighed. "That's the problem, Martha. You never know. You're so busy looking for violations, you don't see the people around you." She paused, then added, "This community is more than just manicured lawns and matching mailboxes. It's about helping each other, about caring. You've forgotten that." With that, Elena turned and walked away, leaving Martha standing alone in the doorway, the weight of her actions pressing down on her like a physical burden. The whispers of discontent had become a deafening roar in her ears. The rules, once her shield, now felt like a cage. A reason to hope. Lily scrubbed at her eyes with the back of her hand. leaving streaks of lemonade concentrate on her cheek. Tom knelt beside her, carefully dismantling the small, brightly painted lemonade stand, the cheerful yellow sign, now leaning precariously against a garbage bin, seemed to mock her. "It's okay, sweetheart," he said, his voice a low rumble, more felt than heard. "We'll figure something out." Lily sniffled. "But Mrs. Rodriguez needs the money." Tom sighed, a puff of air that rustled the leaves on the oak tree above them. Mrs. Rodriguez, the woman whose garden overflowed with vibrant blooms, who always had a smile and a kind word for everyone, and whose laugh could chase away even the gloomiest of days. They trudged back towards the house, the disassembled lemonade stand a cumbersome burden. The setting sun cast long, distorted shadows that danced around them as they neared the back door. They heard their parents' voices, hushed and serious, drifting from the open kitchen window. "The surgery is scheduled for next week," their mother, May, was saying. "But the copay alone is astronomical. I don't know how they're going to manage. She's too proud to ask for help." Their father, David, replied, his voice laced with concern. "But she needs it. It breaks my heart to see her struggling." Lily stopped dead in her tracks, pulling Tom to a halt beside her. They exchanged a wide-eyed glance, the pieces of a puzzle suddenly clicking into place. The whispered conversations, the worried frowns, the hurried phone calls, it all revolved around Mrs. Rodriguez. Tom gently set down the stand components. He crept closer to the window, pulling Lily along with him. The scent of their mother's ginger chicken, usually a comforting aroma, now hung heavy with unspoken anxieties inside. Their parents sat at the kitchen table, heads bent low. The warm, inviting glow of the overhead light highlighted the lines of worry etched on their faces. "What do we do?" May asked, her voice barely a whisper. David shook his head. "I wish there was more we could do. We're already helping as much as we can." Lily felt a lump form in her throat. The lemonade stand. It wasn't just about selling lemonade. It was about helping Mrs. Rodriguez. It had always been about her, Mrs. Rodriguez, who taught Lily how to plant sunflower seeds, who braided ribbons into Tom's unruly hair when he pretended to be a knight, who always had a popsicle ready on a hot summer day. They retreated from the window, their hearts heavy. They sat on the porch swing, the rhythmic creaking a mournful soundtrack to their thoughts. "We have to do something," Lily said, her voice trembling. Tom nodded, his brow furrowed in determination. "We have to give her the money." "But," Martha took it. Lily reminded him, referring to the HOA president. "I know," Tom said, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon where the sky was bleeding into shades of orange and purple. "But we have more. Remember the jar in my room?" Lily's eyes widened. Tom's rocket fund, a jar filled with spare change and birthday money, painstakingly saved with the dream of one day building his own rocket ship. "Tom, you've been saving that for years." He shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "Rockets can wait. Mrs. Rodriguez can't." A spark of hope flickered in Lily's chest, pushing back the despair. They would give Mrs. Rodriguez every last penny. Meanwhile, 2 doors down, Elena Rodriguez stood on Martha's doorstep, hands clenched. The vibrant colors of her floral dress seemed to clash with the stark, manicured perfection of Martha's lawn. "You knew, didn't you, Martha?" Elena said, her voice surprisingly steady, considering the turmoil churning inside her. "You knew that lemonade stand wasn't just about kids making a quick buck." Martha shifted uncomfortably, her perfectly coiffed hair gleaming under the porch light. I was just enforcing the rules, Elena." The HOA doesn't have a heart," Elena interrupted, her voice rising. "But you do, Martha. Or at least, I thought you did. Those children were trying to help me. And you shut them down." The community's outrage. The last splattered lemon wedge was swept into the dustpan. Tom knelt beside Lily, who was huddled on the curb, face buried in her knees. Her small shoulders shook with silent sobs. "It's okay, sweetheart," he murmured, stroking her hair. "We tried. That's what matters." Across the street, Mrs. Henderson, known for her prize-winning roses and even sharper tongue, emerged from her meticulously manicured garden. She hadn't been a customer, always too busy deadheading her blooms, but she'd witnessed the whole scene. Now, She marched across the asphalt, her floral dress billowing like a storm cloud. "Tom, Lily," she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. "I saw what happened. That woman was completely out of line." Tom managed a weak smile. "It's all right, Mrs. Henderson. Just HOA rules." "HOA rules?" Her eyebrows shot up. "HOA rules don't trump common decency. What were you raising money for anyway?" Lily sniffed and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Mrs. Rodriguez's surgery," she mumbled. "She needs a new kidney." The effect was immediate. Mrs. Henderson's face crumpled. "Elena? Oh, dear God. And Martha Livingston shut you down?" She turned back toward Martha's house, a fortress of beige brick and tightly drawn blinds. "That woman will hear from me." Within minutes, the quiet street buzzed like a disturbed hive. The story spread from Mrs. Henderson to Mr. Johnson, the retired accountant, then to Maria Sanchez, whose son played soccer with Lily. Each retelling amplified the outrage. Elena Rodriguez, weak but resolute, even walked over to Martha's house, leaning heavily on her son, Miguel. Martha watched from behind the living room curtains as Elena stood on her perfectly swept porch. The woman's face was pale, etched with exhaustion, but her eyes burned with a quiet fury. Martha couldn't hear the words, but she saw Elena's hand rise, pointing a trembling finger. Miguel helped his mother back down the steps. The next morning, the news trucks arrived at a local reporter, microphone in hand, knelt beside Lily and Tom. Lily, still clutching a stuffed panda, bravely recounted their efforts, her voice small but clear. Tom, his arm protectively around her, explained Mrs. Rodriguez's plight and their desperate attempt to help. The reporter's camera zoomed in on Lily's tear-stained face. Martha watched the broadcast from behind the same curtains, her stomach churning with a guilt she couldn't ignore. The comments section of the news website exploded. HOA Karen. They called her heartless, cruel, completely tone-deaf. Someone had even posted a picture of her house with a giant red X superimposed over it. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. IT was mostly hang-ups, but a few were angry voices, spitting accusations and insults. She unplugged the landline. That afternoon, a handmade sign appeared on her lawn. Lemonade stand supporter. It was quickly followed by another, then another, before dusk. Her yard was a sea of crudely drawn signs, each one a silent accusation. Someone had even placed a single, withered lemon on her doorstep. The isolation was crushing. She tried to rationalize her actions, telling herself she was simply upholding the rules, maintaining order, but Lily's face, the burning anger in Elena's eyes, the hateful comments online, they all chipped away at her defenses. She was no longer just enforcing rules. She was a villain, a monster. As darkness fell, Martha peeked out the window again. The news trucks were gone, but the signs remained, glowing eerily in the streetlights. She saw Tom and Lily walking back towards their house. Holding hands, Lily looked up at her father, then towards Martha's house. Martha quickly ducked back behind the curtain, her heart pounding, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. The silence in her house was deafening, broken only by the frantic beat of her own heart. A change of heart. The television screen glared, casting a sickly light across Martha Livingston's face. A local news anchor, all teeth and polished pronouncements, described the heartless HOA president who'd shut down a children's lemonade stand. The accompanying footage showed a tearful Lily Chan being comforted by her father, Tom, amidst the wreckage of their makeshift stall, a tipped-over card table, scattered lemons, and a sign that read, "Lemonade for Elena's operation." Martha winced. She hadn't expected this. The HOA rules were the rules, but Lily's sobs echoed in her ears, amplified by the news report's dramatic soundtrack. She reached for the remote, but her hand hovered in the air. She couldn't escape it. Not this time. The phone started ringing at first. It was just her daughter, Emily, her voice tight with disbelief. Then came the calls from neighbors, their voices laced with icy politeness that was far more cutting than outright rage. Martha hung up on most of them, the knot in her stomach tightening with each ring later, staring at her reflection in the darkened bathroom mirror. Martha barely recognized herself. The woman staring back was haggard, her usually meticulously styled hair disheveled, Her eyes bloodshot. Had she really become the villain in someone else's story? The aroma of pot roast, usually so comforting, now felt like a suffocating reminder of her privilege. She hadn't even bothered to cook it herself. Mrs. Gable down the street had brought it over, a welcome to the neighborhood gesture that now felt like a cruel joke. She pushed the half-eaten plate away, the savory smell suddenly cloying. The image of Tom Chun, stoically cleaning up the lemonade stand, flashed in her mind. That he hadn't yelled, hadn't pleaded, just quietly picked up the pieces of his daughter's shattered effort. The doorbell rang. Martha hesitated. More angry neighbors? More veiled accusations? She peeked through the peephole. That it was Elena Rodriguez, looking even more gaunt than usual. Martha opened the door a crack. Elena, Martha. Elena interrupted, her voice surprisingly calm. I saw the news. I know you were just following the rules. But those kids were trying to help me. That operation is the only thing that can save me. Her eyes, usually bright and full of life, were dull with fear. Martha felt a wave of nausea wash over her. I didn't know, she stammered, the words sounding pathetic even to her own ears. I swear, I didn't know it was for you. Elena sighed. It doesn't matter now, does it? The damage is done. She turned to leave. Wait, Martha blurted out, grabbing Elena's arm. Please, wait, I'll fix this. I promise I'll do whatever it takes. The next morning, Martha felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. She bypassed her usual morning routine of meticulously checking the garden for stray leaves and went straight to her computer. She emailed the entire HOA directory, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I know more sterile pronouncements about lawn heights and approved paint colors. This email was different. It was raw, honest, and filled with remorse. She explained the situation, her role in it, and her intention to make amends. She proposed a neighborhood fundraiser for Elena's operation. The initial responses were cautious, even skeptical, but Martha persisted. She called each board member individually, leveraging her years of HOA experience to persuade them. She visited Mrs. Gable, apologizing profusely and enlisting her help with organizing the event. Within days, the tone shifted. The neighbors, initially outraged, began to respond with tentative offers of support. The community center, usually reserved for meticulously planned events, was booked for a Saturday afternoon. Banners were printed. Volunteers were recruited, and the aroma of freshly baked goods filled the air as neighbors prepared for a bake sale. Martha stood outside the community center as people began to arrive. Lily Chin, holding her father's hand, walked towards her, her eyes wide with curiosity. Martha knelt down, meeting her gaze. Lily, she said softly, I'm so sorry for what happened. I hope we can make it up to you. She handed Lily a crisp $5 bill. For the lemonade stand. Lily looked at her father, who nodded encouragingly. She took the money, a small smile playing on her lips. Thank you, Mrs. Livingston. As the afternoon wore on, the community center buzzed with activity. Children laughed, neighbors chatted, and the cash box filled steadily. Martha watched it all, a strange mix of exhaustion and relief washing over her. She knew she couldn't undo what she had done. But maybe, just maybe, she could start to repair the damage. The change of heart had been painful, exposing a vulnerability she'd long suppressed, but standing there amidst the revitalized spirit of her community, Martha knew she was finally on the right path, harmony restored. The scent of barbecue, a savory peace offering, displaced the usual crisp fragrance of meticulously kept lawns. Fairy lights winked from the oak branches, bathing Harmony Glades Common in a honeyed radiance. The fundraiser exceeded all hopes. Tables overflowed with homemade goods, pies, knitted items, and gently loved books, a testament to the neighborhood's spirit. Children, transformed by face paint into fantastical creatures, darted across the green, their peals of laughter a bright descant to the local band's mellow chords. Tom watched Lily, a faint smile gracing her lips, assist a volunteer with stacking plates. The lemonade stand debacle had clearly wounded her, yet the cascade of support had been a soothing balm. Acquaintances, now allies, paused to offer encouraging words and, of course, to purchase lemonade, professionally crafted this time, a donation from a nearby caterer, but served with Lily's own brand of sunshine. She's rallying, Tom murmured to Elena Rodriguez, who was seated in a nearby lawn chair, swathed in a thick blanket. Elena's complexion was ashen, but her eyes glistened with pent-up emotion. The event had been a triumph, generating funds not just for the critical surgery, but also for the essential aftercare and rehabilitation. All thanks to you, Elena croaked, her voice raspy with gratitude. Because of all of you. As the band concluded their set, a stillness descended upon the crowd. Martha Livingston ascended the makeshift stage, her countenance etched with a vulnerability few had witnessed before. Her hand trembled as she gripped the microphone. I feel compelled to speak, she began, her voice unsteady. I was wrong, profoundly, devastatingly wrong. She paused, inhaling deeply. My actions were ill-conceived, born of a need to orchestrate, an inability to see beyond my own agenda. Her gaze met Lily's and Tom's, conveying genuine regret. To Lily and to Mr. Chin, I extend my deepest apologies. I inflicted pain, and I disrupted something precious, a child's innocent initiative, a community's spontaneous generosity. A ripple of murmurs spread through the gathering. Lingering resentment was palpable, yet Martha's sincerity resonated. But my remorse runs deeper, she pressed on. It encompasses everyone in Harmony Glade. I allowed the rules to dictate my behavior. Losing sight of the people around me. I neglected the fact that community transcends perfectly manicured hedges and uniform facades. IT thrives on compassion, understanding, and mutual support during challenging times. She nodded toward Elena. Elena needs us, and I nearly obstructed that assistance. I am deeply sorry. The silence lingered for a heartbeat, then a scattering of applause ignited into a resounding ovation. Tom Chin stepped forward, extending a hand to Martha. She accepted it, her grasp surprisingly strong. Thank you, Mr. Chin, she offered, her voice thick with emotion. A fortnight later, the joyous news arrived. Elena's surgery had been a success. Tom shared the bulletin with the neighborhood, and a collective sigh of relief seemed to ripple through the air. Elena remained weak, but her recovery was progressing. Martha visited her daily, bearing floral arrangements and offering help with domestic tasks. One radiant afternoon. Lily skipped along the sidewalk, a modest posy of wildflowers in her hand. She paused at Martha's residence and pressed the doorbell. Martha opened the door, her face brightening at the sight of Lily. These are for you, Lily offered shyly, presenting the flowers. To show my gratitude, Martha knelt, her eyes aligning with Lily's. Thank you, Lily, but no thanks are necessary. I owe you the thanks. You taught me a valuable lesson. The wildflowers, vibrant and cheerful, graced Martha's kitchen table. A constant reminder of the transformative power of forgiveness and the profound unity of a neighborhood. Harmony Glade had weathered a storm, and though faint scars remained, they served as a symbol of their shared fortitude. The meticulously maintained lawns persisted, now emblems of a more profound, meaningful concord. A harmony forged on compassion, empathy, and the simple gesture of a child selling lemonade for a worthy cause.